Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Kishwar Zubair and today we are going to talk about Sacred Games, the book and the series. But first of all, a quick introduction. Sacred Games is a crime thriller novel written by Indian-American author Vikram Chandra. This book was awarded Hutch Crossword Book Award in 2006 and Salon Book Award in 2007. It was also adapted into India's first Netflix original series with the same name, which was produced and directed by two great and talented Indian filmmakers Vikramaditya Motwani and Anurag Kashyap. Sacred Games is the only Indian series on the list of the New York Times 30 Best International TV Series of the Decade. It has also been nominated for Best International Drama Emmy Awards in 2019. Other than that, the series has bagged many other awards nationally and internationally as well. I haven't met a single person who hasn't appreciated or recommended this series to me, but I wanted to read the book before I watched the series, and now that I have read and watched Sacred Games, I have a lot to say. You know how they usually say the book is always better than the movie, and I agree with it, but this isn't true with the series. You see, when a book gets adapted into a TV or web series, I usually always end up liking it as much as the book, if not more. And the reason behind it is because the series provides a lot more time for storytelling and character exploration than a film. I get to spend more time with the characters, I go through their emotional journey, and hence I end up liking the story and the characters. But that didn't happen with Sacred Games. You see, this book is 950 pages long, while the series is just 16 episodes and less than 16 hours long, and I have mixed feelings for both of these. In this video, I will compare the book with its series adaptation, but I will not go into much detail because then there would be spoilers and I don't want to ruin anybody's reading experience. So let's start with the title, which is Sacred Games, and the story deals with the themes of religion and spirituality, which is becoming a bit extreme in India and its nearby countries. So I think the title is just perfect. Now let's talk about the story. The story is about a Mumbai police inspector, Sartaj Singh, who one day receives a phone call from a notorious Hindu gangster who was missing from India from many years, and he starts talking to Sartaj Singh. He talks about his life and his journey, but of course the inspector don't care. All he care about is arresting Gaitonde, but before he could do so, Gaitonde kills himself. And now the question arises, why he killed himself? What was he trying to tell Sartaj Singh? Why he only chose Singh to tell his story? What was he doing in India or in Mumbai after so many years? And the story continues on two different time periods in two parallel tracks. One in flashbacks where we learn about Gaitonde, his life and his journey. And the other runs through modern day where Sartaj Singh tries to find the answer, and you do get all your answers after you finish this book or the series. Of course, changes were made in the series. Here Gaitonde gives a clear warning. He asks Sartaj to save Mumbai in 25 days. It's just that nobody knows what the threat is and from whom. Now there are many other subplots or short stories entangled within this main story in the book. There's a story of a woman named Kamla Pandey who was being blackmailed, and Sartaj tries to find the blackmailer. There is another story of a young boy being murdered by his friends in the Bengali Bura. Then there is a story of Singh's mother's childhood and how her family survived the partition riots. Though these stories were really interesting, but they had little or absolutely no connection to the main plot. The author could have easily skipped these parts. There were certain elements or scenarios in this book that I was reading and literally thinking, why is it even here? Like this description of a maid and her entire family, including her past, who used to work in Sartaj's mom's house when she was little. Then there's description of Gaitonde's penis growing smaller and how he's trying to increase its size, and what life is like in a military outpost in the northeastern borders of India, and many more such crap. The book would have been a lot more shorter and even better if these elements were eliminated. Luckily, most of these unimportant details were either removed from the series, and even if they were kept, they weren't given much screen time, which was fine for me. Now let's talk about the characters. There are many characters in this book. There are so many that there's a glossary given in this book, and while I was reading it, I was constantly going back and forth to look for characters and their respective roles to refresh my memory. Luckily, most of these characters were eliminated from the series, and a few newer ones were added that weren't mentioned in the book or that were mentioned only slightly. There are also differences in the portrayal of these characters in the series, but let's only talk about the important ones. Let's start with the protagonist Sartaj Singh. In the book, he was not portrayed as the heroic hero. He eventually turns into one. He was middle-aged, divorcee and an underachiever. He used to take bribes and he used to take advantage of his police uniform to for threats and a little bit of violence to get things done. Yes, he used to think about his life, problems and politics in his workplace and the condition of our country, but not much. He was portrayed just like a normal person. He was portrayed just like a normal policeman, or the way normal policemen usually are. The things in his life weren't perfect, but they weren't horrible either. But in the series, he is portrayed like a complete loser. He's too depressed, too lonely, too sensitive. Nobody likes him. His colleagues used to hit and abuse him at workplace. And though Saif Ali Khan did a great job, it's this gloomy character that didn't work for me. Then there is my favorite, Ganesh Gaitonde, a street kid with no godfather and zero resources, who became one of the biggest don in India just by using his will and wit. Nawazuddin Siddiqui is just perfect as Ganesh Gaitonde. I can't even imagine any other actor who could have replaced him. But in the web series, Ganesh Gaitonde's personality or his journey wasn't perfectly portrayed, or it wasn't portrayed the way it should have been. He was portrayed just like any other filmy Bollywood villain with fancy dialogues and Thasu background score. They could have worked a little bit more on representing his strong personality as a leader. They should have shown all the works he did for his people and how hard he worked to create his G company, and why this physically not so strong person was feared by so many people who were much stronger than him. And this thing was done a lot better in the book. And just like the book, the series has too many characters as well. A few important ones are Pankaj Tripathi as Guruji, Ranveer Shori as Shahid Khan, Jitendra Joshi as the delightful Kategar, another favorite character of mine, Girish Kulkarni as Bipin Bhosle, and many others. There are many strong female characters as well. There is my favorite Radhika Apte as no-nonsense and focused raw officer Anjali Mathur. There is Kubra Seth as Gaitonde's transgender love interest Kuku. There is Surveen Chawla as Jojo, Amruta Subhash as KD Yadav, and many more. But like I said earlier, certain characters were added in the series that weren't present in the book or were only mentioned slightly. And some of these characters worked and a few didn't. In my opinion, the character of Bhatya, played by Kalki Kochlin, or Nayanika, played by Gitanjali Thapa, and even Kuku, played by Kubra Seth, were pretty unimportant. Even if these characters weren't present in the series, it wouldn't have affected the story much. While I find this book a bit too lengthy and full of unimportant details, I find the web series a bit too rushed. I get to spend so much time with the characters while reading this book that I got attached to them regardless of whether they were heroes or villains, whether I like them or not, whether I agree with them or not. I cried or felt pity when one of them was killed or died or lost someone they loved. But nothing of that sort happened to me while watching the series. Not much space was given to the characters. They were just coming and going, and I couldn't connect to them as much as I did in the book. I didn't feel bad or sad when someone died or was killed, or maybe I already knew who's gonna go. So now let's talk about the writing of Sacred Games. Vikram Chandra is a wonderful writer. There is a smoothness in his writing. It is simple but gripping. Violence, humor and abuse is sprinkled throughout the book like namak in atta. And though I wasn't really comfortable reading and listening to so many Hindi galis, but it kind of worked in setting the atmosphere. Also, there's sex, plenty of it actually. So watch out if you are not comfortable with these, because you may not like it. And if I talk about the themes of Sacred Games, well, there are many. Basically, it is all about India and its history. Its story spans from pre-independence to the present time. It deals with religion, spiritualism, partition, riots, blasts, underworld, feudalism, Hindu terrorism, Islamic extremism, Islamophobia, communal disharmony or communal undercurrents, etc., etc. And the story delves deeper and deeper until finally the dots are connected in the end. And though the vision and intentions of the author and makers of Sacred Games were great, it's just that India and its history is pretty complex and complicated. And when you try to include too many ingredients in a recipe, it kind of ruins its taste, and that's what happened here. There were so many things going on and so many subplots were being introduced and so many side characters were coming and going that I kind of lost track after a while. Yes, I did understand everything. It's just that I don't remember much of what and how it happened. Also, certain elements of Sacred Games were a bit extreme. They were ugly and dark and scary, and it felt more like a dystopian story. The climax of the book is flat, abrupt and disappointing. The author created a mesh of stories and then he tried to link and tie everything together, and he did it successfully. It's just that the book lacked a dhamaka that I wanted after finishing 950 page long novel. It had a bittersweet ending and I was happy after finishing it. It's just that it wasn't great or grand that I was expecting. And that's where the series wins. There weren't many subplots going on in the series, so the entire focus was on the main plot, which was messy too, I won't lie. But it kind of ended well, or it kind of ended better than the book. Both the book and the series have clear flaws, but both have fair share of enjoyable bits. If you have read the book, I don't think you're gonna enjoy the series much. The book isn't a nail-biting, edge-of-the-seat thriller. It's more of a slow burn novel. It demands excessive patience and attentiveness to details and timelines, but I will still recommend it to you guys because no other book has ever gripped me for 25 consecutive days, and I never ever in my entire life finished a 950 pages long book. So it's definitely an engaging read. You're gonna get hooked to the story and you're gonna enjoy it. In the same way, the series isn't perfect either. Particularly, its second season was pretty messy, but certain scenes and dialogues will stick with you for a really long time. You're gonna enjoy it. I may have to reread and rewatch Sacred Games to understand it better, but I don't have the stamina to do so, so that's not happening anytime soon. And that's all I had to say. I actually have a lot more to say, but let's not give away spoilers. If you have read this book or watched this series, let's talk in the comment section. I would love to know your views. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.